So if you want to give a little bit of background on Ronsco there, I know there's a little blurb there, but just give just a high level for everybody so they kind of understand who you are and what you guys do.
Yeah, Ronsco, we have a lot of business units. They're all related to the railway industry. That's our only focus. Been around for 40 plus years, so well established in the industry. But for the context of this call, I guess what's most relevant is in 2011 we acquired a railcar repair facility. So that was our first entry point into actually maintaining railway equipment. And also, we've recently transitioned to RailcarRx, but just for the sake of transparency, we did transition from Express Yard to RailcarRx. So that's the experience that I'm able to talk to you guys about today.
Yep, fantastic. So a lot of you guys know who RailcarRx is. Some of you probably know who I am. My name is Josh Lippy. I've been playing in the rail industry for the better part of 7 years now, so I'm still very green. But I was at RailLink previously. That's for a lot of you may know me from. But I'm the director of operations at RailcarRx. So I worked with Greg to help bring him over and help migrate him from Express Yard over to RailcarRx. And as a lot of you know, RailcarRx, we work in two different areas. We have software platforms that we offer to the rail industry, in particular, one for car owners, one for repair shops, which is what we'll talk about today. And then we also do special projects or special development projects for the rail industry too. So for car owners, for shop networks, so on and so forth. And then we also manage or help provide IT resources to the industry too. So we work with large railroads, some of the class ones, and provide them with IT resources, and then some of the larger car owners as well. So enough about us. Let's hop into the good stuff here, Greg. So let me get to the next slide here. There we go. All right. So here we go. This is the fun part, the Spanish Inquisition. So a good question here we want to start with is how had Ronsco's business grown in the past few years? So in other words, you mentioned that you guys added a shop, but how else had Ronsco grown in terms of shop growth and business growth?
Well, in terms of shop growth in general, like I said, we acquired that first railcar repair facility, and since then the railcar maintenance part of our business kind of exploded over the last 5 or 6 years. We also set up a wheel shop, and we did a few other things in other business units where our employment base probably tripled in that period of time. We also have 2 dedicated on-site mobile repair facilities. We have 2 mini mobile repairs as well. We're setting up a third one right now. So from the railcar maintenance perspective, it's a small part of our business, probably representing maybe 10 to 15% of our revenue as a corporation, but it's by far the biggest growth segment of our business right now. So that's really where it is.
Got it. So based on that, you guys had processes and systems and background systems that changed. And I want to talk a little bit about that too, because what we see is, and I think a lot of the shops that are probably listening here, they've had systems in the past that were really standalone. But I think what you guys did too, and we'll talk about this and let you go on this, is they've added systems behind the scenes. So maybe you can give us a little bit of background on what systems you guys added, what processes changed with all that growth, and then we'll go from there.
Yeah, I mean, we pretty much had to go through a full-scale change to all of our systems over the last 5 or 6 years or so. And a lot of that stemmed from this repair facility, because it pushed our corporate accounting systems to the limit of their capabilities. And so we really got to the point where we had to make a major decision to say, okay, we need to upgrade our MRP, our ERP system. We need to go to something modern. We had some old legacy systems. Nothing was integrated. Nothing was communicating with each other. We had all these sort of independent systems at different locations, and we were heavily spreadsheet dependent. And we just got to the point where it was unmanageable. And so that's, I mean,
oops, sorry. I was going to say, and your ERP is, if you want to mention that.
Oh, it's SAP. We went to SAP Business One, yeah, and we had some old legacy system before that I don't even know what the name of it was. It was so old.
so it was creaking and ready to be put out of its misery, so to speak. So So those changes, they prompted you, as you mentioned, to look for new car repair billing software. So I remember way back when we were chatting, part of the issue was that the Express Yard didn't integrate, and it was going to be a real pain for you guys to be able to push and pull data. Do you want to expound on that a little bit, or tell us a little bit more about how that looked?
It was actually kind of a frustrating experience because we had already made the decision to move to SAP as a corporate system, and I had started dialoguing with ExpressYard because one of the important factors for us was to integrate some information. We needed to integrate some of the communication, a lot of it on the accounting side and invoicing, to make sure that it was streamlined. And so I had several calls and emails with ExpressYard to try to figure out, well, what are the capabilities? And quite honestly, the capabilities were very limited. They made certain web services available. And then there was, some massive charges to implement different things. And there was basically no ability to customize anything to our needs. It was sort of a take it or leave it attitude. At the time, though, I kind of felt like, oh, this was our only option. I didn't even know RailcarRx existed until my colleague bumped into you guys at a trade show.
Sure,
and I think you guys kind of bedazzled them with some of the functionality, and it was after that we did a demo and everything, and we realized that this might be a far better solution. And if we're making a wholesale change to a new ERP system, there's no reason for us not to consider a new railcar management system at the same time. So
sure, yeah. So you guys did it all at once. New ERP. You guys have a time management system, and I'm sure we'll talk a little bit about that and how that integrates to RailcarRx too. And then decided to go full boat and get a new repair shop management system. So you guys really went all out and did a complete change.
Yeah.
I guess the big question is where did RailcarRx help to meet those business needs? If you can give a little bit of background, because I think a lot of people want to know, okay, they may not use ExpressYard, and I know some of the other systems have some of the same type of maybe limited capabilities, but where did RailcarRx come in, and how did we help you guys in terms of all these systems and then tying them all together and making it one platform for you?
Well, I guess one of the huge things, the thing that impressed us from the beginning was from the management perspective, what RX had to offer. Some of the visibility tools, some of the dashboards that the management level folks really want to see on a daily basis. I mean, it was those needs that RX really addressed from day one, and that's what really impressed us from the beginning. The greater power to customize and control some different features is hugely different compared to ExpressYard, which is much more rigid. But but by far, I guess the biggest thing was your ability and your willingness to work with us to integrate in the way we wanted and the way we needed with our ERP, our SAP system. We had never done this before, and we had some ideas about what made sense, and you guys were willing to work with us to make it happen. And it's not a small job; it's a lot of work, and we were kind of feeling our way through it, not having done it before. But it was a completely different culture, I think, working with a company like Primus or RailcarRx to get this done compared to dealing with the behemoth behind some of the other systems where, they said, yeah, they might work with you, but your timeline, you might be put on a list, and it might have happened like a year and a half later, right? There was no sense of urgency there at all, right? And we're just a small company with one repair shop, right? We don't have a network of 22 shops either, so.
Yeah, or even like you said, at a cost that might exceed budgets too, and that's where we can come in at maybe at a much lower cost, but also provide the same great functionality and then integrate to whatever systems you guys have.
Exactly. Yeah.
All right. So let's keep going here. All right. So in what ways, and you kind of already touched on this, but in what ways is RailcarRx different than your previous provider? You already mentioned that there's more reporting, more flexibility. But what other areas too, in terms of functionality, do you think you've gained advantages?
The metrics and the dashboards and things like that, the metrics that you're able to provide. And I mean, there's not a ton of them, but just to be able to be aware of how many cars are in my yard at any given moment, what's my backlog of work, how many approved estimates do I have, how many rail cars are waiting to be repaired, what's my backlog of labor hours that helps me plan in the future. So really those tools from a management perspective are much superior to ExpressYard. The technology is just more modern and more user-friendly in general. The way it is set up, the look and feel is just far superior. And it allows our guys at our shop to basically, they live within RX every single day. We don't need to have any other sort of bolt-on systems. The electronic car file, everything is there. We can minimize the amount of paper that's floating around. There's other functionality within RX that we have yet to actually fully implement, but at least we know that it's there. And it's more on us on the operational side to make sure that we get our guys to change the way they do things. But the beauty of it with RX is we know that it's there already. We don't have to ask somebody to develop it, right? We just have to choose to use it. So.
Yeah. And for those of you who don't know, he refers to the electronic car file. So, and that's unique to RailcarRx. But basically, it takes away the need to have that manila folder in a lot of cases where you're, putting information into and saying, here was a shopping event for this car. So we can store, and Greg, you could probably attest this, estimates, every version of the estimate, every version of the invoice, images, if you want to take images and share them with the customers. And then I don't know, do you guys utilize it any other ways too? Are you adding other information or anything for the shopping event at the electronic car file?
Those key items, obviously, quote, estimate, invoice, all those are the key elements. But I mean, you can add photos, you can do other things. The inspection sheets.
You can share pictures of yourself with the customer, and then they can, glamour shots of yourself.
That's right.
Exactly. Okay, perfect. All right. So any other things do you want to add on there in terms of, functionality wise that were different, or things that have really helped you out over time? I know that, you're doing TTX work at one point in time and working with them and working with their equipment. Were there any other areas?
the ability to generate the 500-bit files in slightly different formats to accommodate different customers is also huge. You guys have done a bit more homework there, it seems. And I don't know if anybody else experiences this, but with the pool of customers that we have, every once in a while we get a customer like a GATX, for example, where the 500-bit file has to be a little bit different, or you guys, even if it's not there right now, the beauty of it is that you guys are willing to work with us to make sure that functionality is available in the future. And so if there's any single thing you want to differentiate between some of the other guys or ExpressYard and yourselves, that's definitely the big one. To try to get anything done differently with ExpressYard was basically impossible. So
yeah, makes sense. So I think that leads us into the next question here, which is whoops, I think I skipped too far. So the experience with RailcarRx, I think it's been a positive one, for you for sure after talking to you. But if you could just, briefly tell us how the experience has been in terms of, working with the organization. I think overall it sounds like it's positive.
Well, I mean, it's very positive. We've implemented so many new systems in the last couple of years, and I'm not going to do calls like this with any of the other companies that we implemented. SAP obviously was a major implementation, but we ended up implementing a wheel shop management system. We implemented a time and attendance system, and it's just the experience with the folks at RailcarRx has been phenomenal. Between Josh and his support team, and the fact that they let me deal directly with their lead programmer every single day, I have absolutely nothing to complain about. I think that's the problem with some of these larger companies. They become so big that they lose their ability to really treat customers the way customers want to be treated. So I
we
really have nothing but good things to say.
Good, yeah, and that's the thing too. I think you realize this too. Is we pride ourselves on putting the customer first. And if there's any kinds of changes or hey, how do I do this? We always make sure to address those. Whether it's during the implementation process or at any point in time during usage of the system. So.
Yeah, and that's not it's not to negate the fact that there are issues or glitches that pop up. The reality is that there were glitches and issues that popped up. The question is, how did they get addressed? How quickly did they get addressed, and how well did they get addressed? And that's what differentiates, I think, the RX team.
Yeah, I appreciate that. You're making me blush, man. I appreciate that. So here's the $1 million question. I think a lot of people that we talk to, they like the idea of switching. They may not be completely happy with their current service provider. But they're a little bit scared about the transition from one system to another. So if you could kind of talk about it, I know yours was slightly different because you had SAP, but still the building blocks are there. Transitioning from one system to another, the learning curve, data transfer, that kind of stuff. If you could talk to that, just give us an idea of how that worked.
Yeah, we actually did transition from ExpressYard to RX first, and then completed the rest of the implementation with SAP. So it was too much. We realized it was too much to do all at once. So we did really plan to do the transition from ExpressYard to RX first. The way we did it was, it's a little complicated, but it's not all that complicated. It does require some work, and it is going to be a little bit painful, but I think the benefits at the other end far exceed the pain that you have to go through. What we did is we made sure that within ExpressYard we cleaned up and finished off any CARs, outstanding invoices that were needed to get done. And so what we did is we migrated all the open projects that we had in ExpressYard, and we migrated those into RX. The beauty is that RX provides a 500 byte file format import tool. So it took me probably an hour or two to go into ExpressYard and download, 100 or so open projects that we had in ExpressYard into the 500-bit file. And using the tool that RX has, I was able to just load them right up into RailcarRx. So all the estimates that I already had in place and completed were migrated over that way. And it literally took, half a day or a day or so to complete. So the other thing that RX
didn't lose any data. You didn't lose any data. Yeah.
No, it just takes a little bit of time, but it's not an overwhelming amount of time, right? The other good thing is that you guys were able to take our customer lists and actually preload it into the system. You were able to take our item master and our inventory and preload it into the RX system. So we didn't have to go through any data entry for that stuff.
Right.
The real work for us was to move all those 500-bit files. And in ExpressYard, of course, you have to download each file one at a time, so it takes a little bit of time, and then we load them up one at a time in RX. But you don't lose any of your data, and it's really the next day you can start up with RX.
Sure.
There's the resistance comes more from people internally, right?
We hear that from time to time.
Yeah, exactly. But it was amazing because after probably a couple days of our biller using the system, he came back and said, you know what, it is better. Like just adding line items to BRCs or pumping out your asset. You have to get used to it because the tools are like different, right? But after a couple days of using it, you start to realize that the functionality is all there. Everything works in the same way. It just the steps are a little bit different, and once you get used to them, you actually become more efficient at it. The copying and pasting tools and the templates and things like that, the functionality is just that much better and efficient that it makes the biller's life a lot easier.
Yeah. And probably the multi-update too, where you can multi-update multiple lines in a BRC all at once too. I'm sure that's
that's
nice
huge
feature to have. Yeah.
Well, that's a really nice feature too for when you have a split bill situation. You need to bill two customers on the same rail car. When you import that BRC, when you move it from ExpressYard or another system into RX, you then have to go in and I'll do the multi-update and to split the bill between two customers, right? But it works so smoothly, so quick. It's really not that difficult. So
good.
But
all right.
So that's the gist of it.
Yeah. So that kind of leads us, I think, to one of our last questions here, but customer service. And this seems to be one of those things we hear a lot. Surprisingly, it's a mix of features when we bring customers over, but it's also customer service. So if you could talk to how customer service is at RailcarRx, you've already alluded to it a bit, but how has that experience been for you?
Well, I'll give you an example. Every month we need to report, we need to run an invoice register report out of RailcarRx, and I provide it to headquarters, and they make sure that everything matches with what, the ERP system received. We had a glitch in the report, the way it was running out of RX. It was missing some information. So I think I might have notified the guys on a Friday night. And Saturday throughout the day, I think I probably had at least 6 phone calls on the weekend from your lead programmer, Josh himself, and your main support guy, Kevin. I had at least 5 or 6 phone calls that Saturday about it, and by Saturday afternoon, the whole thing was addressed, cleaned up, and working perfectly. So, I mean, name one other company you know of that's going to do that for you. Well, for a small company like us, that's just one account for you guys, and I think it's just symbolic of the way you guys operate. So.
Yeah, and that's certainly the case. I do remember that. I know that it was resolved. It was an issue brought up. I don't think it was like a overwhelming, hey, this is going to stop business, but we wanted to get it resolved and get it fixed, and I know it was resolved that day. So yeah. So don't tell my boss, but it did cut into my fishing time that day. So
sorry about that.
He thinks I fish all the time anyway.
Yeah,
all right.
Yeah.
So would you recommend RailcarRx to other shops? I'm fairly confident that you would say yes, but I'll let you answer that. So.
Well, absolutely. I'm not going to say the other systems don't do the job. They do, but RX is probably the full package, and you have the flexibility to do as much as you need to or as little as you need to with the system. You don't have to deploy the whole thing and use all the functionality, use whatever you need. But from our perspective, has been great because we've been able to grow, and the system has been growing with us very easily. We add multiple mobile locations with a few clicks of a button, and and it's simple. You try to do that with the other guys, and they want another $500 to have just set up another location. So, just small examples like that. So, absolutely, I would recommend RailcarRx 100%.
Awesome. All right. So, just to reiterate, as you were saying, we do have systems integration. I know that as the shops that I talk to are becoming more and more sophisticated. Whether they're using outside accounting packages, anything from QuickBooks, which we have a native integration to SAP, to Oracle. I mean, it really runs the gamut. So we integrate to many accounting systems that are out there. And then inventory management systems as well. So if you're using an inventory management system that's outside of your current provider, we can integrate to that typically. And then time and labor tracking, that's a big one. People want to really they're starting to use outside systems. And there's a lot of great systems that you can utilize. And I know that, Greg, you use one. We do have time and labor tracking built in, but a lot of times these tools afford more flexibility in terms of how and where you're recording time. So those are kind of the areas. So here's what we'll do. I'm going to open this up to the floor for questions, and Greg loves really hard questions. So I'm going to unmute everybody, and I think everybody's unmuted now, or should be unmuted now. So if you guys have questions, go ahead and lob them at us, and Greg will be happy to answer any questions you guys might have about our system or about anything in general or about what the weather's like. And you're in Montreal, right? Or you in Quebec?
Yeah. I'm in Montreal when we actually had tornado warnings here, so that's a first for us.
Yeah, I was going to say the whole East Coast is getting it. So, all right, everybody's unmuted. If anybody has questions or has questions about switching or anything like that or functionality, now's the time to ask. So go ahead, I'll open the floor up.
I've got a question down here in Florida. I presume, Josh, that you have handheld units, correct?
So what we do, we have a mobile app. The mobile app actually is going through some changes right now. So the next release on July 7th, the mobile app will be able to, I believe I've been playing in there, but record inspections. You can take images and attach them to cars. You can attach materials to cars. I think you can actually generate the whole BRC in the system or in the mobile app too, and that does work on a cell phone. As far as readers go, we don't have a handheld reader like some of the other guys do because there's not a lot of folks that utilize them. So if you guys are utilizing them, you may be one of the few that are. But we have mobile technology that we're using, like there's an app for the cell phone, but then we also have the ability, if you have like a Android tablet or an iPad, you could utilize the system directly on that tablet and be utilizing it out in the field, as long as you have a cellular signal or a Wi-Fi signal.
Okay.
Yeah, and Josh, if I could just add a bit more there,
Sure.
We went ahead with Express Yard and we bought one of the handhelds, and we never used it. We tried to implement it. We tried to get our inspectors to start using it. They just found it so cumbersome, and it never really worked. So it's actually we use it for inventory control now with the same handheld. We just change the software on it, and our guys go and scan barcodes and type in do the inventory counts with it right now. So that's what we're using the handheld for. But
not the intended purpose.
No, but with the price of tablets now, the way they've come down, especially the Android ones, we have every intention of, with your newer release that's coming out, of putting a couple tablets out there with our inspectors so they can start doing their inspections and actually pre-populating everything right on the tablet. So obviously weather conditions might be an issue, but there's so many different products out there right now that we figure we can come up with something that'll work really well. And like I said, those tablets are so cheap now. If somebody drops it or breaks it, like, big deal. Another $90, you got another tablet now. So it's really not such a big deal. Whereas that handheld, I can't remember how much it cost us from Express Yard originally, like $3,000 or something like that.
I got to work 3 days to make $90, so I don't know what kind of money you guys are making up there in Canada.
That's $90 Canadian. That's about $10 US right now. So.
So, Josh, do you guys do you have a AI tag reader that or just you don't have that? You're just going to go with the tablet when it comes out?
It really is just a tablet. So, and Greg, you can talk to this too. But when you arrive at the car, you're putting all the car information into the system, and it can validate the car at that point in time. So, Greg, I know you guys, when you arrive the cars, do you use the get Umler data to go and validate the car ID, or I think we hooked yours up so that it does that.
Yeah, okay. We're starting to do that now. Yeah, we were just entering the car number in the system, and that was it. But now we have the integration with Umler to get all the data. So it's a click of a button. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah, it basically validates if somebody fat fingers it or doesn't put the right ID in. It'll tell you like this isn't a valid car ID. So it'll tell you. What other questions you guys have? Surely there's somebody else with a question. Anybody? All right. You know what? As soon as I start talking, somebody will have a question. So what we'd like to do with the folks that are on this call, we would love to show you the system. And as Greg said, that he would be more than willing to talk to you guys offline, if you guys want to ask questions. So we'll follow up with an email to everybody on the call here if they want to follow up with Greg or talk to Greg. I'm sure, Greg, you said you'd be willing to chat with any of them to talk about capabilities of the system and how we work, that kind of stuff. So he'd be happy to do that. But if you're interested in taking a look, if you haven't seen a system, it really only takes an hour for us to really run through a demo and show you the ins and outs, how it works. Talk a little bit about what you guys are doing and show you how you would do that in our system. And we'd be more than happy to show you guys and see how it would work for you. Or if there's, outside things or integration that you want to talk about, if we have a technical team that can talk about how that would work or what that would look like, and then, talk to you about how quickly that portion or those things can be up and running within the system. So I'll ask again, any other last minute questions here before we dismiss for the day?
I've got a couple, I think.
There you go.
This one is for, find my notes here.
Greg.
Yeah, Greg. Greg, you said earlier, transferring information, you said you had a lot of spreadsheets, and this helped clear up a lot of the spreadsheets. Are you working primarily your cars, or I know you mentioned GATX, are you working a lot of private cars? What information were you trying that you cleared up as far as transferring over? With the,
yeah, we're a contract repair shop, so we're independent. We don't own any cars, so we're beholden to a lot of the leasing companies and other car owners out there to get us cars here. So we don't control the flow of cars into our yard, right? So we have a limited yard capacity, so planning is incredibly important for us. So one of the main reports that we've been able to do away with is a spreadsheet that we used to keep track of all the cars that we have on site, who the customers were, where they are, are they approved? Are the estimates approved? Are the estimates even done? Have the inspections been done? We used to keep all this in a spreadsheet, and so our planner was also having to filter through the spreadsheet to decide what to bring into the shop tomorrow to repair and what's being outbounded today. But now we've been able to completely do away with that. So our planner is able to see everything right on his screen. He looks at one screen on RX and he can see all the cars that are available to him, where the estimates have been approved, the ones that have been waiting for repair. The ones he can also see which ones are under repair, and as soon as the repair is completed, he can move them out of the repair phase and into the QA or the invoicing phase. So like on every screen that you're looking at in RX, you see exactly where all your cars are and how many are in each phase. So that's just an example of one of the things we were able to do away with completely. A lot of the other things also come into with the integration now that we have with our corporate systems, where all the invoicing is automatically recognized. All the inventory management is all centralized. So we've just been able to do away. We're effectively paperless, from that perspective now.
Yeah, and even just let me add too, even if you're not using SAP or some other system, we have what we call global local capabilities. So if you have multiple locations, you can still have this capability of sharing account information, sharing pricing across multiple locations from one administrative account. So we have this capability, and that cuts down on errors, billing errors, inconsistencies, those types of things too. And Greg, I don't know if you've utilized that yet, but you have those capabilities in the system to share inventory across locations, to order inventory for different locations. So there's multiple ways that you can manage a network shop from one admin or from one location.
Well, I'm kind of glad you brought that up, Josh, because while you had us muted earlier, that was one of the questions we had internally here, because we do have more than one location currently. And hopefully, if everything goes well, we'll have more later. So, Greg, I got another question, if you don't mind. So essentially what you're telling me is in your repair shop, if your production manager is in the shop and he's walking through, essentially he has a tablet, he can check the current status of every car that's in the shop itself, like under repair, as far as the current labor that's being applied to it, and also the current status, double check that car was not in by mistake and is being worked without approval. Is that what I'm understanding?
Exactly. Yeah. It's it's across the top of the screen. You have these tabs, and so you can see right away all the cars that are in the in the repair phase, and then even within that phase, you're able to see if the car is actually under repair or if it's waiting to be brought in for repair. So you can see the status of it anything very easily. Of course, this all presumes you're maintaining the data integrity in the system. It requires that people be diligent and keep things up to date. But that's the same with any system. We just like the way the visibility of the information is much more functional for us, the way it's presented in RX.
Right. Yeah. Any spreadsheet's useless if it's not updated.
Yeah. You're
Yeah,
absolutely
that's
right.
Yeah.
And if you love spreadsheets as much as I do, it's great to do away with them. What other questions do you guys have out there?
Price comparison, and certainly, I guess, depending on how big you are and what you're needing. As far as Greg, what was, not looking for exact dollars, but percentage-wise from Express Yard to RailX, was it comparable?
It was almost a wash. I think, it's a different, it depends, I guess, on what your contract is and how it's structured. And Josh, I don't want to speak at a turn here, but the way our contract is structured with RailcarRx was a little bit different than what we had with Express Yard in terms of how the billing is done anyway. But at the end of the day, it ends up being it was a wash for us. It was, pretty much the exact same amount per month that we were being billed for each one. So just to get, the added functionality and benefits of RX, it was a no-brainer for us.
Right. So you're getting a lot more apples for the money.
Bingo.
Absolutely, yeah. And I know there's talk by Express Yard now that they're trying to revamp their system and everything. So it's clear to me that Express Yard was, I guess, the primary system out there for a long time, and they probably just, didn't spend a lot of time updating it, and nor did they even try, I guess. But then RailcarRx has come on the scene with a much better product, much more modern technology too. And now the pressure's on Express Yard, and they're scrambling just to try to catch up for sure.